All right, we are here on UORadio with our talk show for this week. UORadio talk show number 17. We got two special guests with us here today, and let me go ahead and get something done here just real quickly. All right, and let's see, I got the little title up there and everything, and somebody was asking over here in the IRC chat room and everything, where can I get this copy or version of Stones? Well, let me put it this way. You have to look really, really hard out there on the web to find this copy. So, it's out there on the web if you are looking for it. I'm debating on whether or not to put it out there and, for downloading and things, so that way other people out there listening to UORadio can have a copy as well. So, depending on how much bandwidth we got available and all that good stuff, I'll make that determination later on. But, getting back to what we was talking about, our talk show, right? So, I want to thank everybody out there who's tuned in for our talk show as always. And, as I was saying earlier, we have two special guests. So let me go ahead and introduce who we have here today and everything. I do have Bebad here with me today. If I'm not mistaken, he plays on Great Lakes and Atlantic for the most part. And he also goes by the name a.k.a. Mr. Luigi on the forums. So with that said, I want to go ahead and introduce him. Hello, Bebad. Go ahead and say hello to everybody out there.
Hello, everyone. Just wanted to say thanks for having me on the show today, and yeah.
All right, and there you have it. That's Mr. Luigi, or a.k.a. Bebad. Whichever, what do you want to be known as, Bebad or Mr. Luigi?
Bebad.
All right, Bebad is. And then, of course, we have our very own DJ Deadeye here with us, as always, pretty much, from Sonoma. So go ahead and say hello to everybody out there.
All right. Well, hello, all you good people out there. I'm glad to see you could join us for our talk show today. I'm glad to be here as usual, and I guarantee you we'll have some interesting things to talk about.
Yep, most definitely. As always, we always, cover the most recent things out there in Ultima Online that took place over the course of the week and everything. Just touch on, the highlights of the week pretty much. And so go ahead. I think it's GodZane, right? Go ahead and say hello.
That's right. I'm GodZane from Poland. My real name's Charlie, and I'm playing on Europa, and I'm happy to be with you guys today.
Thank you, and it's always good to have people from different parts of the world, and, and quite frankly, I think your English is very good for a person from Poland. I mean, I don't talk to too many people from Poland, but from what I can tell, your English is pretty good, so it's glad to have you with it. Good to have you with us. I think a few weeks back we had somebody from Greece, believe it or not. And so it's always good, like I say, to have people from different parts of the world. And so, enough of that. And we're going to go ahead and get into our first topic here for the day, which is going to be discussing something that I discussed last week, as a matter of fact, and it was about the advanced character tokens working on Siege Perilous. And there was a lot of uproar about that, about how the, advanced character tokens worked on Siege. Well, come to find out, it did work on Siege, but it worked for about a week or two. And it just recently got fixed, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that's still the case today, but, I did mention last week I would look more into that and get back to you guys about whether or not it does work on Siege or Perilous or not. But to my knowledge, and from what I've read, it's not intended to be that way. So in other words, for all you people hoping to get out there and use your advanced character tokens on Siege, it's not intended to be that way. And so therefore it will be fixed if it hasn't already been fixed. And so I'm kind of curious as to what you guys think about that. Do you guys have any comments? Are you guys surprised by that? And that it even worked on Siege when it wasn't even supposed to work on Siege? And do you think it was just like a bug? And I mean, because all the kinds of things have been kind of happening over at EA lately, with regards to bugs and all kinds of things. So, go ahead, Deadeye.
Well, I figure it probably really was a bug. Things are going to happen like that. When they just did Mondane's Legacy and they had an awful lot on their plate, and things are going to happen and I agree completely with it not working over on Siege, because Siege is supposed to be the place where you go to play, where you really have to earn everything,
Yeah, so it's just one of those places where it's going to be unusually hard, and you're going to have to build up your skills and all that good stuff. And the economy. I don't think you can sell to NPCs there. You can only, for the most part, you can buy from the NPCs, and it's 3 times the regular amount on production shards, but you can't sell to the NPCs. So go ahead, Bebad.
Okay, well, with that bug, it did cause an issue. There's a lot of people who quickly moved over there, bought another copy of the 8th Age. It is a bug, and the QA at Electronic Arts OSI there, it's a rather small team for the QA, so it's probably something they never even would have thought of because, face it, there's not that many people who play Siege. I know people are going to hate me for saying that, but there's not. So they're going to worry more about the production shards, and this issue did come up. It's being rectified. And, yeah, so at least they fixed it.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing that they fixed it. And so with that said, go ahead, GodZane.
Yeah, I've never personally played on Siege, but I think it's an obvious bug. The idea over the Siege Perilous is that people come over there and play the veteran way, the hard way. So, codes shouldn't be supported. And as Bebad said, I think it's just a little mistake from the guys from EA. Just they forgot about the little Siege Perilous and that it shouldn't be excluded for the codes.
Yeah, and I actually do have a question for you, GodZane, since we're on the topic of Siege Perilous. I noticed that, the Asian region, the region of Asia, they got a shard called Mugen, and America's got a shard called Siege Perilous. What are your feelings about Europe in general not having a Siege Perilous of its own? Are you kind of upset about that you have to go play on either on an Asian shard over in Asia, or that you have to play on a shard in the United States and not in Europe? I mean, do you think, personally, yourself, do you think Europe ought to have a Siege Perilous of its own?
I think the player base in Europe is still a little bit too little to open up additional shards. We already have 2 shards, Drakenfels and Europa. And, well, I personally don't feel mad at EA that they didn't open any kind of shard like that yet. But I think it could change, and I think a lot of people from Europa would switch to very similar in regards of rule sets. Because PvP on Europa, it's getting much nerfed by the archers.
Yeah, the archer seems to be an ongoing issue, and hopefully sometime within the next 6 months, we'll hopefully see some kind of move by EA to address those issues with archers and everything. Hopefully that PvP rebalance and all that will be coming in here sometime soon. I personally can't wait for the capping of the LRC, because my guess is that they are indeed going to cap LRC by the looks of things. I mean, I'm just getting the impression, and that I'm not saying they are. I'm just getting a strong impression that they are leaning towards that direction. Of course, and then in a situation like that, I think they would, gives the mages some kind of regent pouch or something that would be equivalent to that of the quivers or something like that. And I'm reading some ICQ messages that I've gotten in. I'm reading the IRC. Some people are saying, yeah, it sucks that Europe doesn't have a Siege Perilous shard or anything, but. And then I'm reading one message from somebody in the UK saying, I wouldn't have thought there would be enough European people to have a Siege shard. So it seems like the general consensus from the European players is, no, we just don't think there's enough players in Europe to warrant a Siege Perilous shard. But then, of course, we have some European people as well saying it sucks at the same time. So I guess that's the general consensus from the European players for the most part. And so with that said, I'm going to actually move us along to our next topic here and everything. I don't know if you guys have been reading the Ultima Online news as of late or anything like that, but if you've been watching the news and everything, you'll notice that Ultima Online did end up in the Genesis World Record. And I can't remember exactly what. Let me see if I got that here. Yeah, I got it here, and let me read what it's in the Genesis World Record for. And I'm pulling up statics here real quick. And here's the source. It's from the Genesis World Records 2006, page 181. Category, longest running online subscription game. And here's what the text says under that. It says Ultima Online was first introduced or first launched in 1997 by Electronic Arts and helped define the emerging category of MMORPGs. Note that it says MMORPGs. It also says it is now played by millions of gamers in more than 100 countries. Me personally, I think there's a bad choice of words because millions of gamers, that's not quite the case. We ain't like World of Warcraft where we have like 3.5 million subscribers or anything like that. Last I recall, there was like 165,000 active accounts for Ultima Online. That doesn't mean, you know, all 165,000 active accounts is individual players. I mean, that could be, you know, one player with 26 accounts. It could be one player with one account that accumulates to 165,000. So I'm kind of curious as to what you guys think about, you know, Ultima Online ending up in the Genesis World Record. And are you guys proud about it or what? You know, go ahead, Deadeye.
Yeah, I think that's really groovy because that's what Guinness does is keep track of world records, and if we set one, we ought to be there. And I think it's been well deserved. You know, I mean, nobody's done. UO has achieved something nobody else has done. So there you go. It ought to be there.
Yep, and yeah, definitely. You know, and I'm actually going to make an analogy here in a little bit, or a comparison. So, Bebad, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
No, I did, but Deadeye basically summed it up.
All right. Well, you know, like I said, I was going to throw out an analogy or a comparison for you guys. And as you probably all know out there, you know, the game Pac-Man, right? You know, the guy that goes around eating up other ghosts and stuff like that. Well, if you ever play that game, which I'm sure many of you guys either heard of it or have at one time in your life played that game, you know, on the Atari or something like that. Yeah, Pac-Man. As you know, that game is a very well known all across the world and everything as a, you know, old, real, recognized game. You know, if you see a picture of Pac-Man, you can associate who that is. You can look at a picture of Pac-Man and say, oh yeah, that's Pac-Man, right? Well, you know, same thing for Ultima Online. It's kind of like the Pac-Man of MMOGs, you know, in a way, because, you know, it's been around for all these years. And believe it or not, it's even surpassed and outlived some of the newer online games out there. Like I think I can't remember which one Arcus said it was, but a little while back, I think either Assurance Call 1 or Assurance Call 2 closed down its online game for, you know, and so they had to shut down that game. It's outlasted Earth and Beyond. It's outlasted you know, some of the other newer online games out there, and yet Ultima Online, as being as old as it is, with old graphics, old engine and everything, it's still running strong in a lot of regards in comparison to all these newer online games that are coming out there, coming and going. So, I mean, that ought to tell you something about Ultima Online, and surely, you know, Electronic Arts is doing something right if they're able to surpass some of these newer online games that just about a year or two old or something like that. So, I mean, it really does spell out quite an accomplishment for EA in general because, you know, Ultima Online is, to me, like the Pac-Man of MMOGs. Go ahead, Deadeye.
Well, you know, talking about the old engine and whatnot, you know, I think one of the things we have to consider here is I think the fact that there's not as much emphasis on in UO on this tremendous 3D graphics and all this kind of thing gives a lot of room in the game for a tremendous, very rich level of content. Think of all the different items and options and stuff that we have to work with in there. Whereas, you know, the servers on a particular game are going to be able to handle so much. So if you've got to look at what we get by maybe not dedicating so much of that game power, you know, to graphics alone. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yep, you know, like the game can only or your computer can only handle so much. at one time and, or one instance. And so, yeah, I think it's really great that Ultima Online's been around for 8 years and that you can try all these different things. And quite frankly, I don't think any other game out there can meet what Ultima Online offers in terms of what all you can do in it, because the simple fact, Ultima Online's been around for actually, it has been around for 8 years. And you're talking about 8 years worth of content and everything in it that you can, take advantage of. Whereas some of these newer games, they've only been around for a year, so they haven't had as much time to put in as much content into it like Ultima Online. So with that said, go ahead, GodZane.
Yeah, I have to agree with you that Ultima Online is considered as the Pac-Man of today's, and you have to notice the fact that all the modern MMOs, they just rip off the ideas of Ultima. Notice factions in World of Warcraft, and another fact is when I talk with people who play other MMOs, they seem to know what Ultima Online is, but the fact they are always pointing out is the old archaic graphics and that it's not playable. I think it's not user-friendly for immature guys, I guess. Because the quality matters, because the graphics.
Exactly. And, the way I look at it is that you have to have an open mind whenever you go from a 3D game to a 2D game like Ultima Online. You have to have a really open mind, if you ask me. And I think, and I guess that's probably why the Japanese players are so interested in a 2D game like Ultima Online in comparison to 3D games in Japan and stuff, because there's a lot of MMOGs out there in Japan that are not available here in the United States and other parts of the world, such as Europe. They're just exclusively available to the Asian region, like Ragnarok, or I can't even say it, Renoku or something like that, online or something like that. Pretty much caters to the Asian market for the most part, to my knowledge. But go ahead, Bebad.
Okay, yeah, I'd agree that this game is the Pac-Man of MMORPGs. But you gotta remember the small little programmers in their basement, sort of like Richard Garriott was, the MUD designers. There's MUDs out there that have been around a lot longer than Ultima Online. There's no pictures at all, and you'll get some of the most diverse story that you'd ever get. I'm not saying everybody drop the Ultima Online and go play a MUD. I'm saying you gotta remember that Ultima Online's not the first multiplayer game where you could have 100 people in it, but it's the first game with the subscriptions. You'll see that the Asian market, they tend to play the games for playability. They don't play it so much for the graphics because, well, playability is more fun. The market there is for a cafe-oriented type thing, so they want to be able to pick up the game and go play. They don't want to have to wait in server queues for 2 hours like you had to in World of Warcraft. You didn't want to have to run on foot everywhere like you did in SWG. The market there is for the simplicity, more like they rather grind and play the game as a team instead of doing the single player thing. And yeah.
All right, and with that said and everything, I'm actually going to come back to you a little bit later, Bebad, to discuss about playability and, just be able, take an online game and get right into the action and everything. I'm actually going to go back to what Aegis of Shadow brought about to the game and whether or not you thought overall that was a good move by EA or if that was actually a bad move. And we're going to come back to that later. But go ahead, Deadeye.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to expound on what Bebad said about some of the games. It's not the first game of its type. With the comment, I remember a game that I played many years ago, back before there was Windows, when we were operating on the DOS system, and it was called PC Hack. It was a dungeon game. You went down the dungeon, you fought all the monsters, and had to find the shops to buy things and all this stuff. And it would just involve symbols, and you went down and you had little hallways and stuff. You went down, and it was all a symbol-based thing. You had to, in order to beat this thing, you had to make it all the way through. You had to go through like 26 dungeon levels. And I played that game for 10 years. Not one time did I ever sit down and play it, that I didn't run across something in it that I hadn't ever seen before, and I never beat it, ever, in 10 years.
You guys still remember the game Wolfenstein when that was a big old craze back then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, go ahead, GodZane.
Yeah, just a small fact. I mean, I think it is interesting because Ultima Online, along with Quake 1, had its parts in developing ISPs, especially in America. It's been the first game which demanded a stable connection, and actually it was a real-time stream, so you had to have a good connection.
Yeah. And I'll say, definitely coming back from 1997, looking back at all the games in the, just looking at, online games back in 1997, how we was playing on dial-up for the most part. Yeah, I mean, I think we come a long ways in terms of internet age and everything. I mean, it's been just remarkable how long this game's come along, or how far along it's come along. So with that said, back to my question to you, Bebad. Do you think Ages of Shadow hurt the game or helped the game, in your opinion? Go ahead.
Well, I consider myself a veteran newbie. I quit playing Ultima Online for about 2 years. Just took a break from mass multiplayer RPGs altogether, really. I left probably about a week before Age of Shadows came out, and came back about 2 weeks before Mondane's Legacy came out. And from what I see in this game, I came back, and the economy was so shot. The gameplay had changed completely. It's a totally different game. It's very Diablo-esque. And yes, for marketing-wise, that's great. For players who have played the game for years, some people would agree that it's great too, but other people would also disagree. When PvP becomes item-based like Worlds of Warcraft or any other mass multiplayer RPG, there's certain issues. It takes away the originality of the game. The game was never made to have super crazy weapons with superpowers to them. It was a game made mainly for you to, rely on the crafters, rely on the warriors. As a miner, I relied on a warrior to protect me from a PK when this game started for the first 4 years, really. And so in my mind, I think Age of Shadows hurt the game from a play-based standpoint. From a marketing standpoint, it really helped EA.
Yeah, very good point. And I want to touch on that a little bit because, as you pointed out, for someone who's quit the game and come back to the game and everything, let me just touch on some facts here a little bit. Ages of Shadow came out February 28th, 2003. And let me read a little description here for you guys. It brought the Landmass of Malice with lots of space and new housing, 2 new character classes, which is the Paladin and the Necromancer, and the possibility to customize house designs. They also nerfed the Thieves, leaving them only crates to steal from. Now, this is what Ages of Shadow brought. It also brought about item properties. Now, can you imagine somebody who did remember, who maybe came back, maybe quit in 2001, or maybe quit in 2002, or maybe quit in 2000, or any time before 2003, February 28th. Can you imagine anybody coming back to the game, and then, how simplistic the game back was prior to Ages of Shadow, coming back to the game, and then coming back to a whole item-based game on, anytime after February 28th, 2003, and then just swamped with item properties and everything. Going from, having to, basically play a game that, took only like 5 or 10 minutes to equip weapons, and going from 5 to 10 minutes to getting ready for combat purposes, and then going from 5 to 10, going up to several hours just to get all your equipment put together, because when you have to sit there and look at all those properties and everything, you're like just think about how much time you're consuming out of your own gameplay and your own game time, just looking at all those item properties to make sure you have the proper equipment for whatever purpose you're going out there for. Whereas, back in the old days, I could just grab a spear and some bandages and go out there and fight a few monsters and have a good old time. Didn't have to worry about item properties. Didn't have to sit there and evaluate, do I have a good weapon or do I not? I mean, from me, from my perspective, I think that hurt the game a lot. And I think a lot of players out there agree. I mean, we're talking about time consumption here, and yes, it's great from EA, I guess, for that players spend more time in the game. But really, I think it's just actually a nuisance, so to speak. So go ahead, Deadeye.
Well, it kind of reminds me of something. I saw a movie one time about the making, called Fat Man and Little Boy, about the making of the atomic bomb, and who was it? Paul Newman played General Grove, the guy in charge of that, and he made a statement in there. He said, when you want a man to go in a particular direction, you don't lead him by the nose. You simply close off his options. He said, simple as a truck. Well, that's kind of what they did to us with Age of Shadows. They introduced this complicated armor system where you're going to have to sit down and take the time to learn how to do it. And the way they forced everybody to have to learn it, the first time I went out, I used to set off a fire island on a boat and kill dragons and stuff and all that stuff. And the first time I went out there and tried to do that after Age of Shadows, when the bottom dropped out of magic resistance, and I died about 1,000 times and managed to get out of there with all my stuff intact, plus managed to hang on to my boat, I realized that by golly, I'm just going to have to sit down and figure out how this armor works, because that's what I'm going to have to rely on from now on. So that's kind of what they did. They closed off our options because they decided they were going to make a major change in the game from skill-based to more item-based, and that's what they decided they were going to do. And they probably did it from a marketing standpoint, as was mentioned earlier and everything. But yeah, they closed off our options. So you really, you had to sit down and figure out what was going on with all this armor and item stuff, because there wasn't any other way to do it.
Yep, very good point. And go ahead, Bebad.
Well, also to add on to that, insurance came with Age of Shadows, correct?
I think it did.
Well, right there, that, I hate saying it, but that is the key root to the economy's problem. Like, yes, I rely on it now because, well, I'm not going to lose all my good stuff if no one else is going to lose all their good stuff. But, there was a saying that you never take with you what you're not ready to lose. Like you're going to a dungeon. There was a point in time where you'd go to a dungeon and everyone would die. There would be no way of getting your stuff back, because by the time you got yourself healed and rezzed, you'd have to go back. You wouldn't be able to make it back in. The PKs, like, one thing that really helped the economy was PKing. So when Tramble came out, there was no PKs. People weren't losing their items. They were just mass hoarding items and gold. So that really messed up the economy. Like, my first day back after my away from this game, I sold one of my items that I had from, like 1998. Sold it for about 3 or 4 million gold. Right there, that was more gold than I ever had in 6 years of playing the game. And you know why? Because the economy. People have the money now, and it's not really the greatest thing in the world, because I'm not going to be able to come back and buy a $90 million armor set. So with that said, I do agree with your normal questions there, Vice, that we do need a pre-UOR, and I think it'll do a lot better than EA thinks it would.
Yeah, I have to, I mean, that's really why I think a pre-UR would work, because, just from an economic standpoint of view and everything, I think it makes a lot more sense. But, the way the economy is right now in Ultima Online with the whole insurance and everything, is that, in player versus player, or PvP, that's pretty much just switching hands. No, there's no gold leaving the circulation. I mean, there's not a percentage being taken out of circulation every time it switches hand. I mean, if it takes 3,800 gold to insure your items and everything, and it goes from one player to the next, how's that helping the economy? I mean, really? I mean, is it doing anything for the economy? No. And, another thing I could never quite understand is why in Felucca do you have insurance? Is Felucca not supposed to be like a dangerous place where you have a lot of risk and that you're taking a risk every time you go to Felucca? I mean, is that not a facet where risk is a norm? I mean, come on now, let's think about this. I mean, I just can't understand it. So yes, I would say the whole insurance thing, it really needs to be either modified or it needs to be removed altogether. I mean, that's the only way I can ever see insurance ever be a solution or even helping the economy at all. It's going to have to remove a percentage of gold that a player would receive from circulation every time a player dies or something like that. That's really the only feasible gold sink solution that I can see ever becoming of item insurance or something like that. Anyhow, go ahead, GodZane.
Yeah, actually a very good point about the insurance. I think it's the biggest mistake EA ever made. And some words about introducing AOS. I think EA wanted to somewhat evolve the game because it seemed very archaic, and I think they thought it's going to bring them a lot new customers. But I think they didn't quite thought too much about the consequences of doing so. They lost the majority of the old players, and I don't think the new ones who just came after AOS would like that system if they knew pre-UOR. So I think it's the biggest, but EA can do something with themselves because they thought it's getting.
Yeah, very good point. And, like I said, anybody that played before February 28, 2003, they pretty much went from a simplistic type game to a very sophisticated game. Now, for somebody who's quit the game or has already quit the game once and then they come back to a sophisticated game, more than likely those folks who left in the first place the first time around, for whatever reason, they're going to be even more frustrated when they come back to a game that's going to require 3 or 4 or several hours just to get equipped to go out and do something. I mean, that's going to turn away a lot of your old players right there, just from that point alone. I mean, because, I know for me, if I was to come back, we're talking about 5 years of history prior to AOS and everything. Almost 5 years of history prior to that. And so if you was a player that maybe played 5 years previously or prior to Ages of Shadows, and then you come back to a whole entirely new game, sophisticated, even more sophisticated now, chances are you're probably not going to stick around very long after that. You're probably just going to end up quitting again somewhere down the road because of that. For that very reason, you're going to have you're going to be like, this ain't the game I remember. This ain't the game that is enjoyable anymore because I don't want to spend several hours getting equipped. A lot of people don't want to have to go out there and spend several hours getting the gold to get something, just to be able to do something in the game, to go out and fight a peerless boss or whatever. People don't want to have to spend that many hours trying to get the items in order just to be able to, go a step further in the game or to progress in the game or go fight something more harder in the game. I mean, it's just not something that's really wanted. So really, Ages of Shadow to me, it sounds like anything before that sounds like the best solution. And I say pre-UOR because you have player versus player. I think it would be a lot better than Siege Perilous, in my personal opinion. Not saying, that I wish any ill will towards the Siege Perilous players, but, this is just my honest opinion. I think it will do a lot better than Siege Perilous if and when they ever do introduce a pre-UOR, because I think the only reason people are playing on Siege Perilous is because, first of all, you have that PvP atmosphere. It's the closest thing out there right now, closest to pre-UOR. Now, a lot of people say, well, you already got your pre-UOR shot pretty much. I'm sorry, folks, for all you guys out there who say, well, that is your pre-UOR shard. Sorry, that is not pre-UOR. That's a hybrid between Ages of Shadow and pre-UOR. I mean, pre-UOR does not have Malice. It doesn't have Ishlaner. It doesn't have hold on, I'll take that back. Siege Perilous doesn't have Tremble. but we don't have Takuno, we don't have Ishlaner, we don't have Malice. I mean, we're talking about 4 facets on Siege Perilous. Now, pre-UOR only had 1 facet, not 4. And I'll tell you something else about Siege Perilous that pre-UOR didn't have. Siege Perilous has item properties. I don't think Blessed Deeds were out in pre-UOR, but I could be wrong about that. Now, I think they were out there, come to think of it, because you did have that cleanup Britannia giveaway, Blessed Deeds or whatever. But even those items broke after a period of time. So, these blessed items that were on that shard, they eventually decayed and everything. They weren't able to be removed and replaced on another item or anything, or if your item broke, which Mr. Tact is planning on doing. So, if I'm not mistaken and everything, according to the plans and changes that Mr. Tact has in place for Siege Perilous, if your item breaks on Siege Perilous, or let's say your item's about to break, you'll get your personal Blessed Deed back. You can go use that personal Blessed Deed whenever your item breaks, and then go use it on another item if you want to. Whereas on a pre-UOR, once that item was gone, it was gone. There was no taking this personal Blessed Deed or this Blessed Deed off an item and putting it on another item. There was none of that at all. You see the hybridness in which I'm talking about here? I mean, I really hope that the people out there who are basically saying, well, you already got your pre-UOR, I want you to see how much of a hybrid Siege Perilous is. And this is why a lot of players like me, personally, Viceroy right here, will not play on Siege Perilous because it's a hybrid. It's not pre-UOR. It's not anything like a pre-UOR to me. So, I mean, if you're satisfied with a hybrid between the two, well, then Siege Perilous is definitely the way to go. But I think for the hardcore veterans like myself and everything who've been around for 8 years, who like simplicity and all that, they're going to be like, hell yeah, pre-UOR all the way. And they're going to dish out the $30 to go play on a pre-UOR shard if and when EA ever does offer that service, in which they did hint to or reference in a survey a week or two ago, which we'll be talking about here in a minute. So go ahead, GodZane.
Yeah, just a short summary. In my opinion, UO quit its own ideology of being a strict and plain MMO, which was what people loved. That's it.
Yeah, and I think that's a big problem for Electronic Arts. They kind of strayed away. They kind of try to get up there with the other online games and what was a fad at the moment, they try to introduce into Ultima Online, from what I can see. I mean, that's how I perceive it, personally. I'm not saying this is how every player out there in Ultima Online is going to perceive it. But, I think what EA was trying to do is they was trying to capitalize whatever was popular at that point in time. And, back in 2003, the thing that was most popular was Diablo 2 and all that. And so what did they do? They brought in Ages of Shadow, item properties, neon colors and all that. So, I'm sorry, folks, but that's just not I don't care how popular a game is or how well another online game is doing or some other game out there that's doing. I don't want that in my game. I want Ultima Online to be unique for what it is and, preserve its history and not try to copy somebody else's history. Be unique. Do what, set your own history. Don't be trying to go out there and copy other people. Go ahead, Bebad.
Okay, I just wanted to add in a quick little note. If EA never made Richard Garriott choose between Ultima Online and Ultima 9, I think if he was still in the company working with this game, it'd be in a totally different direction than where it is right now. He believes in the idea of the player base makes the decisions, and EA doesn't agree with that. And in a sense, they made him choose between the two games, and then after that, they basically forced him to quit. And that's what he did. And that's all I had to say.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us and everything. And, I think I pretty much already touched on that subject enough and beat it into the ground. So we're going to move away. We're actually going to be discussing something now in which we see quite often on the static boards and everything. Have you guys ever noticed that whenever you go to the U-Haul forums of Stratix and everything, that you always see these little online petitions and everything on the static boards and stuff like that? You know, let's petition for a pre-UR shard. Let's petition for a pre-AOS shard, and let's petition for this and this and this. My question is to you guys and everything, and I want y'all's feedback on this. Do you think online petitions are really effective in EA's eyes? I mean, do you think that really gets EA's attention? Do you think EA even pays attention to these online petitions? How effective do you think these online petitions are? And I want y'all's feedback on this. Go ahead, GodZane.
Yeah, well, I personally think they do read the petitions and stuff, but I think it doesn't have any influence on the EA's decision. I think the people, the staff, which is responsible for giving us the quality, I think they know the problems. I just guess someone above them is, willing to make UO as it is now. I think the people are just like us, the staff, and they want the old UO back, but they can't do anything on themselves. I think it's just a directive.
Yep, very good point. Go ahead, Bebad.
Okay, well, the way Electronic Arts works is it's a very investor-based company. You basically have to get the okay from the investors to do anything big or major. And when it comes to expansion packs, you look at EA, they are the kings of expansion packs. Look at The Sims. There's got to be like 9 expansion packs between The Sims 1 and The Sims 2, and then it's also on console. They'll do whatever they need to do to make money for the investors or themselves. Yes, the staff there probably does know that what's happened to the game has killed the game that we all love and know, but you also have to remember, there's not really any of the original or even pre-AOS staff left on the OSI Ultima Online team. And the way it also works with them for quality assurance is it's an online quality assurance team, so it works on all the online mass multiplayer online games. So they're going to miss some of the issues as well. Yeah, the investors don't really, and I just want to touch on that again, the investors don't really care for Ultima Online. They see this as just a little quick money maker, I'd assume, because in a sense, compared to Worlds of Warcraft, they don't make much money. This isn't the biggest money thing. And for the online petitions, they don't really look at that because, they come to realize that there could be any amount of people with multiple accounts petitioning, and also the fact that they look at their numbers and they see, oh, well, there's 165,000 people playing the game because they see individual accounts. They don't realize if they look a couple pages down in the information screen that 25 of them are owned by the same person. So petitions will never work. They'll see it and they'll agree with it, but they won't work.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why I really have to question the effectiveness of online petitions and everything, because unless you have a petition with ID and all that good stuff, and whereas going through a legal process or something like that, quite frankly, that's the only way I ever see a petitioning working or anything like that. But even then, you have to question the validity of that. Go ahead, Deadeye.
Well, so far, been my observation that the only times, that when there's been a basic movement throughout the player base of UO that we want a certain thing, and we actually do finally do get it. We usually have the cry throughout the land for it almost has to come up to a deafening roar and stay that way for a long time. I think that's the only thing that gets any results is when the wheel gets very, very squeaky and stays squeaky for a very, very long time. So as far as them taking a look at the online petitions and stuff, that's not it. What they're looking at is what they start hearing from everybody and their dog across the board.
So in other words, in a way, you're referring to something like UOR, being the squeaky wheel and everything, because that whole argument's been going on for almost well over 6 years now. Believe it or not, yeah. And we still haven't seen a pre-UOR shard. Yeah, about almost 6 years, and still no pre-UOR. So hopefully, hopefully that's a good analogy to, for somebody wondering what could it be talking about. Well, pre-UOR, I would have to imagine, is one of the most ongoing pressing issues since Trimble began, which was back in, let me look here for you guys so I can give the facts here and, have my facts straight. This is when Trimble was introduced, for all you guys out there. It was introduced on April 3rd, 2000. So this has been an ongoing issue since April 3rd, 2000, and we are almost in the year 2006 now. That ought to tell you how badly or how much we want pre-UOR. I mean, this has been going on and on. I mean, quite frankly, I don't know of any other issues or any other things that have been going on for quite that long, for 6 years almost. So, I think it's one of those things that EA is going to eventually have to recognize, as much as they like to ignore it. It's just going to have to be one of those things they have to concede to, because I mean, let's think about it, folks. There's already free shards out there that pretty much offer this, but how reliable are they? They can't go out there and, I mean, that's why I personally don't care for free shards or anything, and I know we're not supposed to talk about free shards all that much, and I'm not talking about it, like, oh, I'm not gonna refer to any free shards by name, or talk too much about it, but free shards, they suck because they're unreliable. That's in a nutshell, that's pretty much free shards in a nutshell. So if you like wasting 5 or 10 hours or whatever amount of hours of your time on a free shard that's going to shut down a month or two later, then more power to you, and that's all I can say. But that's not my kind of game, and I want to play a game or on a server where I know it's going to still be up 2 or 3 years from now. I want to at least get my return on my little $30 investment, knowing that I'll have a reliable shard that I know will always be up. So go ahead, Bebad.
Well, just to comment quickly on your last little saying there, the $30 investment, you got to think it's not just a $30 investment. You paid $30 for the game when it came out. Then you've also paid $15 a month for 8 years. That equals over $3,000. Or I don't even know. It's a lot of money. And when it comes to player-run shards, there's only one shard that I've ever seen. I haven't actually played it, but that I've seen that's still up and running, and it's been up and running for a long time. And Adam Ant of Napa Valley put this one up, and it is pre-UOR. Just a couple other little add-ons in there to make him happy because, well, it's his server. And, yeah, I agree with you that they do suck going to those shards, but there's a lot of people that stick with those shards purely for the PvP because it is old school PvP. It's not, okay, get your 10 million gold artifact. So, yeah.
Yeah, very good point. And, like I said earlier and everything, I like the fact that, you don't have to go spend all this time and everything. And, the way you have to look at it, EA, and if you're out there listening, I want you to look at it from this point. If you do come out with a pre-UOR shard, regardless of development time, you're still going to get extra monthly subscriptions from that. Because not only are you going to get the initial investment or initial return of $30 for everybody that wants access to a pre-UOR shard, even though a lot of players out there who are for a pre-UOR shard don't think they ought to have to dish out another $30. I can relate to them, but really realistically, that's the only way we're ever going to see a pre-UOR shard. It's if people are willing to dish out $30. I mean, come on, folks. It's it's all about the money in the long run. So let's be realistic about it, and that's the only way we're ever going to see a pre-UOR shard if we're willing to put out $30 or not. That's really the only way I ever see it coming about. And in addition to this, it's going to be good for EA because it's going to bring more subscriptions. It may not be a whole lot, but it's going to be additional subscriptions. It's going to be an ongoing subscription for a long time because, the longevity, usually the longevity of those kind of players are typically around for a long time. That's just my personal opinion. Go ahead, Deadeye. Actually, go ahead, GodZane.
It's GodZane. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, what you said is most of the people who play on free shards currently, and it's a huge base of players actually, do it only because of the fact that there isn't any pre-UOR or pre-AOS server hosted by OSI. So, you know, they want the old UO back. That's why they decide to play on free shards. And the fact that could convince EA to run a pre-AOS or pre-UOR shard is that they would have a very nice injection of new players. I mean, old veterans coming back to UO.
Yep, very good point. And I mean, for all those people who got shafted by AOS when they came back, you know, all those people that I was telling you about that played prior to AOS, they quit prior to AOS, then come back after AOS and say, I don't want anything to do with this. I ain't gonna spend no 5 hours trying to get equipped to go do something. You know, screw that. You know, I'm gonna quit. You know, go play something like World of Warcraft or something like that. For all those players that said no to that, I guarantee you those will be the players that will be coming on back to Ultima Online when they get something more simplistic, something they can get out there within 5 or 10 minutes and be out the door and go out and fight in a dungeon or whatever it is they liked about Ultima Online previously. Go ahead, Deadeye.
Just a interesting note with reference to the comment that was made about what the game has actually cost. I ran some quick figures, and for one account, we're talking in the ballpark of $1,000, $1,100 over 8 years per account. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, hell, I've been a loyal player for that long. I mean, I think I deserve it pre-UOR shard. So come on, EA, dish up. Come on, I'm waiting. You know, and quite frankly, I wouldn't mind dishing out another $30. Me personally, that's me personally. So, you know, so I personally don't mind putting out another $30, even though I don't think I ought to have to. But from a business standpoint of view, I'm willing to do it. So let's move on to our next subject now. And let me get a drink here because I'm getting a little dry. All right. Let's see. Discuss character transfer delays of 30 minutes, which has been posted up on Stratix today that you now have a 30-minute delay on character transfers. Wow. That's all I can say is wow. You know, why you guys think there's now a delay of 30 minutes rather than instant? Have you guys ever noticed that prior to this whole character transfer fix and everything, there was instant? You know, it was instant right there and then. But now we got a 30-minute delay. My guess is that they have a check and balance system now that checks to see if there's any dupes or anything, or have some kind of check or script that runs the item ID properties and makes sure there's no similar ID tags or anything for that particular item. I bet you anything that has something to do with all the recent dupes and everything. So, with that said and everything, I'm going to start with Bebad. What do you think?
Okay, well, since they've returned the service, I've transferred 2 characters to different servers within the realm of the game. The first transfer that I did, it didn't take half an hour. It probably took about 10 minutes. It seems to depend on the traffic of how many people are where they're going, how many people are going there, and probably the items in your pack. Because one character I transferred had next to nothing. He's just some up-and-coming archer. And then the other character was one of my mains, and he had a lot of expensive items. It seems the expensive items kept him, like the one that was the expensive item holder, he was the one that took probably about 20 minutes to transfer, whereas the other one did not. I'm going to assume that they're using, like you said, a script to verify the items, make sure the item IDs are right, or even probably to check through the artifact level to make sure they have a secondary security to it, so then there won't be any duping of that item, because I'm willing to bet the dupe is still there, just they've tried to figure out ways to slow down the process so it won't happen as frequently.
Yeah, that would have to be my guess, because I mean, if you can bust some people or have something or a script that, you know, basically signals a red flag, hey, we got a duplicate item here or something like that, then that could send a notification to a GM or something, and then the GM could investigate it further and then maybe prolong the transfer or delay the transfer even longer if they suspect something be at all wrong with it or anything like that. So go ahead, Deadeye.
Well, it could be one of a couple of things. It could be what you guys are saying. They're checking things over a little more closely, and they've simply instituted a cash system where they can, put people in line to be transferred, depending on how fast they get through. It depends on how long it takes to get your transfer done. Or they could have simply needed to possibly delegate less server resources to that particular function post Mondane's legacy too.
Very good possibility. So go ahead, GodZane.
Yeah, and let me just quote one of our friends on IRC, Battle Rose. He said, "I wish we couldn't transfer items at all." And I have to agree with this because, for instance, on Europa, there has been a flaw of artifacts from other shards, and it somewhat is quite the opposite of the whole idea over UO, the shattered crystal and mundane things. Similar words, but with other events happening over there. So yeah, there could be only character transfer, but no items with it.
Yeah, I can see what you mean by that. And character transfers, when they came out with the whole concept and idea for the game, I was opposed to it. First of all, like you said, GodZane, it pretty much screwed up the lore from the fact that, the Shattered Crystals being all the different shards, right? And so, you, in essence, was a world of its own. So going from one crystal to another or whatever, that just kind of screws up the whole lore. But then, and on top of all that, you have the economic problems in which that brings about, because say there's a dupe on one shard and everything, it floods over into other shards. Let's say, because prior to the shard transfer system and everything being introduced, I remember there was just a dupe on AOL Legends, or Legends now is what it's called. And I was like, I know the minute we get all that deep gold on Legends, it's going to start pouring over into Chesapeake, my home shard. It's going to pour over into Atlantic. It's going to pour over to Europa and all that. And sure enough, it sure enough did and everything. So it pretty much balanced out where all the gold was going and everything, but it just created one big mess. So for all the shards with the healthy economies, just got in essence screwed overnight by the character transfer system and everything. And the whole thing is like, I was like, well, if you guys have to introduce something like this, at least remove the gold from being able to be transferred over and everything. Well, of course, as we all know, not only could you just transfer whatever you had on you, you could also transfer 3 pack horsefuls. So we're talking about 125 items per pack horse, which is 375, if I'm not mistaken. 375 items and 125 items on yourself in your backpack. And so in all, you got about 500 items in all that you can transfer, in essence, including the stuff that you have on you. So, that was just one big problem just waiting to happen. I was like, and I saw it, before it even came about. I was like, this is going to be a problem, regardless. Whether it's a big success for EA in terms of sales or not, it's going to be a problem. Sure enough, it is. So go ahead, GodZane.
Yeah, just slightly off topic though. We were talking about, you were mentioning about duping items, and we were talking previously about pre-UOR and AOS. Well, it's a fact that duping was it's been used in UOR and pre-AOS whenever it was possible to, and it had an economical influence over the shards, and we still have the issues about it now. just slightly off topic.
Yeah, I don't think, I don't think we'll ever see duping go away for good. But, the whole thing about the different shards and everything, at least it contained it, to just one shard. I mean, if a dupe broke out on one shard, it was just on that shard that it affected. So it was, in a way, a sigh of relief. In some essence, but then you had a little while back, about a year or two ago, you had the ingot dupe bug, where basically people could just produce unlimited amounts of iron ingots. I mean, we had that bug there for a while too, and that went unaddressed for almost a year, if I remember correctly. And so, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened with EA back then. I mean, it's just like, wow.
People still sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, people still have 200,000 ingots selling for 5 GP, so yeah, I know this issue. It's still present.
Yeah, I'm sure it's still out there floating in circulation somewhere, and then you top that off with scripters in the game on top of all the already existing items from dupes and stuff like that. You're just compounding the problem even further. So, with that said, we're actually gonna. Well, go ahead, Bebad.
Okay, well, I was just reading what Bethel Rose just said. You guys are assuming the knowledge won't go from shard to shard. I haven't assumed that it won't go from shard to shard, because there are these old sites that used to do the bugs. Like, you look at Dr. Twister, he put his bugs up there for the knowledge of the people. There's also another site there that EA employees can't go to, so I can't go there. And that would be AskChopper.com, and you have to put in bugs to get bugs. And there was one bug that was brought to my attention, that you could mine iron ore, or any ore for that matter, no matter where you stood, if you were an elf after Mondane's Legacy came out. That was you never heard that being addressed on the forums or anything like that, but it was fixed. There's quite a few little bugs that you don't see get posted anywhere that are still going to be around, and there's nothing that you can do about it. Worlds of Warcraft has the bugs. SWG had dupe bugs. Horizons had dupe bugs. Every game has dupe bugs. It's basically, people know net code, and once people learn to make the programs that can take advantage of the net code, it will be able to figure out how to do basically anything. All these player-run shards that are based off this code. Once you learn the code, people have the ability to do whatever changes they want. So it's going to be an ongoing battle that will never change, no matter what server you're on.
Very good point. And yeah, all those people in the IRC are like, thanks for giving the URL out. Yeah, I'm sure EA from time to time goes over to that website and reads that website for any bugs that they can get out of it and everything. And maybe who knows? Maybe they go out there and put in a little minor and insignificant bug or something that won't disrupt anything in particular to a great degree in order to find out what's the big bugs out there. Or maybe they got some kind of, I don't know, maybe they do something like that, because how else are you going to find out about the major bugs and everything unless you go to some of these websites, especially if you're an employee of EA or something like that. So, so that's very interesting and everything, but we're actually going to move away from that topic and move over to something else. And this is going to probably stir up the hornet's nest, so to speak. Discuss morality in online games. Does it apply to online games? Do you think morality applies to online games? For example, don't steal, don't kill, and don't, cause grief on other fellow players in Ultima Online. Do you think that applies to the online game, MMOGs, or do you think it's a free-for-all for the most part? So I'm kind of curious, because me personally, I don't think it applies to an online game, but I do think if real-life money becomes involved, I think that is when you start merging the two together, and that's when it becomes a problem. But when there's no real life money involved, in terms of screwing over another player, that I guess you guys kind of understand where I'm going with that. But I think the moment you agree to do something, well, let's just say you agree to offer a real life amount of money, and then you screw that person over after they trusted you, and you both agreed to a real life dollar amount on a particular item or something, and then you turn around and screw them on that. That's when it becomes a morality issue. But when you basically either scam somebody in game for UO gold, basically selling a fake black dye tub or something like that, which was very popular back in the day, in my days, or you basically kill a player and loot their items of high-end properties or something like that. Me personally, I think that's a free-for-all. But the moment you make an agreement and you don't follow through that, and it has real-life dollar value on it, that's when it becomes a morality issue. And that's how I feel about the whole issue. So go ahead, Deadeye.
I couldn't disagree with you more, Vice. I'm going to tell you something. I've been around a long time, man. I've been around 51 years. And one thing I have learned in all that time is that it is all on the wheel, buddy. It is all on the wheel. And I can't not shake the purely gut feeling that, when you're dealing with somebody or you do something to somebody in the game, you're not doing it to computer character. You're doing it to another human being, And I figure if you go over here and you put it on somebody else, the whole concept of karma, it's going to come around and bite you in the rear end, man. I guarantee you. And people can think what they want to, but that's exactly why and how I operate like I do in the game. I don't go doing things to people like that because it will come around and bite me in the butt. Now, that's what I believe, because it's all on the wheel, because you're dealing with another human being there who's put in their time and work and all this kind of stuff, acquiring what they were doing or something, this thing. And if you take advantage of them, then sooner or later somebody's going to come around and nail you, man. I guarantee you it'll happen.
Yep, good point. And GodZane, go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with DJ Deadeye, but I have to add something to it. I think morality applies to the most of the people, but there are people who actually want to forget about morality and act very wildly in the game. They want actually the game to be quite the opposite of real life, so they can be a real prick and cause fear, pain, because their real life isn't as good as they would want it to be and stuff. So that really depends on the person.
Right on. And go ahead, Bebad.
Well, also though, you can't say that the people that cause people problems have issues in real life and all that, because this is a game. You look at people you've had Caesarean Voices did an interview with one, that's Lord McManus. He goes out to using the game mechanics to grief players. He had his little sniper squad where he'd go around with the stealth archers, him and his buddy, both named Ed McManus. And they'd go around just to kill people as a sniper, they call themselves. And that's a game mechanic that's in the game that is, for some people, is fun. Just like PKing is fun for some people, just like crafting is fun for some people. It's the ability to do whatever you want in Ultima Online that made the game great. I don't think morals come down to everything. When it comes to scamming, yes, I fell victim of the black dye tub scam once or twice. But I also saw many people fall scams to the house key issue and a whole bunch of other scams that happened throughout the years. And, it's part of the game. It's part of real life. If you were to buy something off the street from somebody, you don't know if it's been stolen or if it's actually going to work the way it's supposed to be. And that's what makes UO, in my mind, great, because there is that ability it's not going to be exactly what you see. A lot of it's changed since then. Like the black dye tub issue would never happen today, but it did back then when everybody wanted that black dye tub, because everybody wanted to believe that everybody's good and great, but they're not. And there are a lot of players that do play with high morals and morals and all that good stuff, and there's lots of players who don't, and I think it's a great mix, and you need the bad people to make the good people as well. You have to play off each other.
I like the fact that you said, basically there has to be bad and good people. Me personally, whenever I played the game back in the old days, I always liked to play the villain. Back in the, back in pre-UR and everything, I played an archer, thief, fencer, So basically, I would steal from you to provoke you into attacking me, and then once you attack me, I'd beat you down, And that was how I made my living back in the day and everything. But I'll tell you one thing, I never was quite all that rich in the game or whatever, because back then if you had 10K or even 100K, you were rich. So, and that was also when you could, I remember this too, when you could actually steal house deeds, believe it or not. That was you got your hands on one of those. You was quite happy, especially if you were a thief. Go ahead, Deadeye.
Hey, from what I understand, Vice, you used to sell used cars, so that kind of says it all.
yeah, I have been in the business of selling used cars, so. But I've always tried to be honest in every regards as possible. So I mean, I don't think I have a morality issue, because when it comes to real life, and you have lawyers coming up, I don't want to get in no legal issues or anything. So I tell the customer straight up, hey, there's something wrong with it. I get it fixed or whatever else that's wrong with the car. But when you buy a used car, you buy it as is, and so in a way, I'm not telling you no lies. So, and whenever you buy a car as is, that's not a lie. Go ahead, Bebad.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you this much. I've never been one to scam someone, but when stealth came in, I sure didn't think twice about walking into someone's house. Back then, it was a dog-eat-dog world. You had to survive, and, when I lived 3 screens away from one of the biggest PK guilds on Great Lakes at the time, I had no problem walking into their castle or their towers and taking all their stuff. And my guild would make good of it. Like, we would basically, one person would camp the door until someone opened it. He'd go in, and then he'd message us, let us know that he was in there, and he'd open it up for us. Same thing would happen, whereas we'd have a house, and it would be filled to the brim with items, but all those items were in chests that were GM tinker trapped. And we wouldn't think twice about dying on purpose in front of a bank with a key and a rune in our backpack and letting an entire guild walk into that house and die. It was just the way the game worked back then. There's a lot of people that don't realize that the world wasn't always a happy place like the trammel of today. There was a point in time where you had to worry about walking into the dungeons. You had to worry about walking out of a moon gate. You had to worry about walking anywhere outside of a guard zone. So there's some issues where people say there's no morals for doing that type of stuff, but what happens to you, the saying, what goes around comes around. Well, lots of people made sure that happened.
All right, and go ahead, Deadeye.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing we was bringing about, in the days when all we had was the Palooka-style play system. You always, no matter what you were doing anywhere, you always had to have one eye over your shoulder, for the red names to show up and all that kind of stuff like that. And I still live in Palooka. One reason is, of course, if I want to place a big house, it's a lot easier to find a place over there. But the other thing is that I really think psychologically that I like is that when I'm coming into and out of my place and stuff, where I'm operating there close by to it, I've still got some of that flavor. I have to keep an eye out for the bad guys. I kind of like that.
Yep, and go ahead, Bebad.
I just wanted to make a quick comment that something that Arcus says in Cistherian voices every once in a while. I really do miss going into a dungeon, seeing arrows on the ground, and realizing that I'm not the only one in the dungeon. And you don't know if it's going to be a friendly player or not. It could be a blue PK. And I miss that, whereas in the common day world set, you go into a dungeon, you don't know if there's people there, and if there is people there, they're not going to kill you if you're playing in Tram.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. They're giving me such a hard time about being a used car salesman, but alright. I'll leave it at that. Let's see,
you
and
see
our
what
next
I did
topic.
there. I sicked everybody on you.
Yeah, you got the whole crowd on me now. I'm fending for myself now.
Well, I try to keep
Shame
your
on
life
you.
interesting, man. I really do.
Yep, right in the middle of a talk show too. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. What we're going to do now, we're going to move away from the hand. We're going to go talk about the survey, about the recent survey which Ultima Online put out and everything. We're going to have a look at that and let you know where the numbers stand at the moment. And we're going to read this. So basically, for all you guys who tuned in last week, you heard the survey questions and the responses given. And so I'm going to go ahead and read it again, and then I'm going to give you the responses given by players. We have I'm looking at about close to 400 responses, 386 responses to be exact. So with that said, we're going to go ahead. What is your age? Users may choose only one. Okay, so under 13, there was no users that filled that out. 13 to 17, there were 16 users. From 18 to 24, there were 76, me being one of them. 25 to 34, there was 156. So I guess that's our average player base right there. 25 to 34, 40% of the people. Okay. And 35 to 39 and 50 people. Let's see, 40 to 49 is 58 people. 50 to 64 is 29 people. And 65 and older, there's one player. Wow. Okay. Are you a current or former subscriber to Ultima Online? 347 current subscribers and 39 a former subscriber to Ultima Online. Okay. In the past week, approximately how many hours did you have you played Ultima Online? Let's see. 41 people said none. 30 people said 1 to 2 hours. 3 to 5 hours. 44 people said that. 6 to 10 hours. 56 people said they play that many. 11 to 20 hours. 82 people responded to that. And 133 people said they play at least more than 20 hours a week. Wow. So that was the majority right there. More than 20 hours of play a week. Wow. Okay, and then the next question here. How many active accounts do you own? 119 players said they only own one account. 115 players say they own 2 accounts. 49 players say they own 3 accounts. 31 players say they own 4 accounts. And 29 players say they own 5 accounts. And 34 players say they own 6 or more accounts. So the majority is just 1 account. All right. And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being poor and 10 being excellent, how would you rate your current UO playing experience? And let's see, 41 people say it was a 1, which is being poor. 20 people rated it a 2. 31 people rated it a 3. 49 people rated it a 4. 48 people rated it a 5. 40 people rated it a 6. 79 people rated it a 7, which was the majority here. And 50 people rated it an 8. And 11 people rated it a 9. 14 people rated it a 10, being excellent. Okay, next question here. How likely would you recommend to your UO to your friend? Okay, here we go. Very likely. 58 people said very likely. 111 people said likely, which is the majority. 78 people said neutral. 73 people said not likely. And 67 people said not at all likely. Okay, how long do you expect to continue playing Ultima Online? Less than 1 month, 31 people said that. 25 people said 1 to 2 months. 43 people said 3 to 5 months. 39 people said 6 to 11 months. 54 people said 1 to 2 years. And 185 people said more than 2 years, which was the majority. All right, looks like people are planning to sticking around, which is 49% of that vote right there. And here, let me get me a quick drink. All right. Next question here asks if you have any complaints about Ultima Online, please select your top 3 complaints. All right. 69 people said the friends I play with are quitting, which is 6%. 24 people said don't like Ultima Online Samurai Empire, 2%. Okay. 43 people said the monthly fee is too high, which is 3%. 52 people said not enough story, which is 4%. 34 people said quality isn't high enough, which is 3%. And 12 people said not enough combat for me, which is 1%. 84 people said bad customer service, which is 7%. 216 people said UO has become too item-based as opposed to skill-based, which is 19%, which does look like appear to be the majority here. And 99 people said too many bugs, which is 9%. 22 people said have trouble advancing my character. Your character advancement seems slow, which is 2%. 60 people said don't like the graphics, which is 5%. 20 people said don't like Ultima Online Moldane's Legacy, which is 1%. 32 people said not enough stuff to do besides combat, which is 2%. 26 people said have a hard time making friends and feeling a part of the community, which is 2%. And 11 people said don't feel I have enough time to play, which is 1%. 20 people said I've experienced everything the game has to offer, which is 1%. 11 people said too many high-level characters leaving me with no chance to catch up, which is 1%. 5 people said difficult to learn to play, which is 0%. 12 people said game isn't cohesive, which is 1%. 32 people say bad experiences with other players, 2%. And 148 people complain that there's the PvP balance problems, which is 13%, which is the second highest here. And then 41 people said others, so something else, which they specified later on, which made up 3%. And then 13 people said I have no complaints about Ultima Online. Wow. I have to believe that is the lamest response you can probably give. But that's my personal opinion. If you don't find anything wrong with Ultima Online, I'm sorry. There's always something you can find to complain about Ultima Online. There's always ways to improve the game unless you're just absolutely thrilled with the way the game is, which I find hard to believe. I mean, surely you have some ideas of your own how to make the game better. So, for those 13 people who said absolutely no complaints, I find that a little bit hard to believe. All right. Other than Ultima Online, which of the following role-playing games do you currently subscribe to? We'll skip that because that's really not even important. From the list below, please choose the top 3 features that you would like to see in future Ultima Online expansion pack. Please check your top 3. All right. So let's see. Anybody have any comments so far about that? Because I'm trying to get my breath here. And, okay, go ahead, Bebad.
Just a quick question. Is this a Stratix done survey or Electronic Arts? Because if it's just Stratix, even though they are the official host of the EA's UO forums, they're not going to get to all the public that needs to see this.
Very good point, and yes, that is, yes, it is a Stratix survey and everything. So let me go ahead and finish reading this now that I got a drink. Let's see, and I kind of lost my place here. All right, here we go. So, you know, it basically asked you what were the top 3 features that you'd like to see in Ultima Online. And here's what people voted out of 386, which I mentioned earlier. 28 people said more items. Okay. I want to strangle those people. Items with new kinds of properties, more rare items, more artifacts, more item types. Okay. 70 people said ship-to-ship combat, which makes us 6%, and those people that want more items, that made up 2%. Thank God. 42 people said enhance community features, which it made up 3%. 49 people said more housing options, house styles, tile sets, and add-ons, and etc., which made up 4%. 73 people said more player races, which made up 6%. 23 people said more group combat or group questing type experience, which made up 2%. 87 people said skill and skill game improvements, which made up 7%. 17 people said more professions, which made up 1%. And 126 people said a Renaissance shard that featured a rule set much like that what you shipped with, and that was made up 11%. And let me see if that is the top. I think that is yep, that won the most votes right here. That is the top one right here. And 15 people said enhanced chat system in-game, 1%. I'd actually like to see that myself. 38 people voted the enhanced question system, which made up 3%. 29 people said improved interface that will make it easier to play, which made up 2%. 78 people said updated 3D graphics that look as good or better than the new MMOGs, which made up 6%. 7 people voted more skills, 0%. Which made up 0%. 43 people voted more player versus player modes, including realm versus realm or guild versus guild, which made up 4%. And then 18 people said new lands to explore, which made up 1%. 20 people said more interesting enemies with better AI, which made up 1%. And then we have 103 people who said updated 2D graphics that would keep the style and feel of current UO, which made up 9%. And 77 people voted for improvements to game stability and bug reduction, 6%. I'm sorry, you shouldn't even have to ask for that. 10 people voted for a stronger guild system, equals 0%. Let's see, 64 people voted for more major in-game events that I can be a part of, which made up 5%. Okay?
Excuse me,
and
Vice,
76.
excuse me, Vice, you're breaking.
Okay. Am I breaking up? Okay. Am I still breaking up here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll try getting through this part. Let's see. And then we have 76 people who voted for an improved combat system with more tactics involved. And that made up 6%. And then we have 23 people who voted for other please specify, which made up 2%. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and read this, and I'll probably save the next survey for next week because this is a really long survey. I'm only halfway through it, so I'm kind of like thinking about like stopping right there because I've just already ate up a bunch of time. And so I'll go ahead and throw that out on the IRC channel. You can look for yourself. And there you go, guys. And because I'm about, there's no way I can read the rest of that, but that pretty much gives me a good idea as to what's going on and everything. Alright, I'm still here. Yeah, alright. Just had to fix that little radio issue and everything. Yeah, it looks like I was looping there for a little bit. So I don't know. So with that said, I'm just going to go ahead and go on to our next topic here and everything. What do you guys think about the ideas of being able to purchase holiday gifts in-game for themselves or fellow players within the game to remove gold from circulation and serve as a gold sink? What do you guys think about that? You think it's a great idea rather than just giving it out for free? Maybe have players go up to like a community collections or something and purchase these gifts to give to their fellow Ultima Online players or purchase gifts for themselves. What do you think about that? I mean, do you think that might be a good idea or what? Starting with Deadeye, go ahead.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad. Kind of get you into the spirit of Christmas and all that kind of stuff. You can go out and get something, buy something nice for one of your friends, Other than that, kind of make some things available. Of course, generally I try to work up something or craft something or come up with something to give I usually hand out gifts and stuff. But, if they'd open up a Christmas gift store or something in UO or something, that might be kind of interesting. I don't know.
Well, the only thing I fear about this idea is that if EA was to do something like this, they'd say, oh, let's sell this for $7.99 or something. Sorry, EA, I don't want that. I want something that will actually remove gold from circulation. I don't want to have to purchase it like I did with the evil decor item or any other type of items. I don't want it to be a service. I want it to be an in-game item that I purchase with in-game gold to maybe help with this inflation that's going on in Ultima Online. That's the whole idea behind this. But I don't think it's EA's responsibility to give out free gifts each and every year. I mean, I want to hear from you guys whether or not you guys think EA ought to be obligated to give out free gifts every year, around Christmas time. Don't you think it's the players' responsibility? Alright, guys, I'm back, and if my ISP don't quit dropping me, I'm going to be one angry person. But anyways, I'm kind of curious as to whether or not you guys think EA is at all obligated to basically, come on and give you guys free Christmas gifts. Do you think it's a responsibility of theirs to give it to you, or do you think EA ought to present you with an option to go out and buy gifts in-game with your in-game gold and maybe give to other players rather than just giving it to you as a free handout? Go ahead, Bebad.
I do like the idea of making a gold sink out of it for once, but I also like getting those Christmas presents from EA. It's something that I've collected all the presents that EA has given me while I've played the game. I didn't get any of the Age of Shadow stuff, but it doesn't bother me too much. Neon clothing. But no, like Christmas bells, St. Patrick's Day, all those stuff that they used to give out, having those, it basically gives you a bit of I was here at that time. I think EA giving you those away is a good thing.
Okay, so you think EA ought to give it away for free and continue that practice of giving stuff away for free each and every year just because it's a tradition, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think they ought to move away from that because, at Christmas, I think, you ought to have to go out and purchase your own gifts or purchase gifts for somebody else because it is the, the holiday of giving and stuff like that. So why should EA have to give you something? Because they're a company. They're a for-profit company. I just think it's just one way to basically address the economy at the same time, presenting players with the ability to be in the spirit of giving, That's just why I kind of want to get y'all's feedback on that idea. All right. And how many of you guys in here played on the Shard of the Dead? So if you played on the Shard of the Dead, quickly turn on your red light and turn it off, and that'll let me at least know that you played on the Shard of the Dead, All right. And so we have Bebad and GodZane that played on the Shard of Dead. So with that said, with that in mind and everything, how did you guys like the community collections over on the Shard of Dead, where you could basically turn Lord British's castle into like a theme park for that particular holiday season? And how would you like the idea of maybe turning Lord British's castle into a theme park around Christmas, around Thanksgiving, around October for Halloween, around April for Leprechaun's Day or whatever, or something like that? Would you like to have Lord British's castle turned into like a theme park on each particular month, like a different theme for every month of the year? Depending on whatever region you are in. For example, over in Asia, I'm sure they probably don't celebrate some of the things that we celebrate here in the North American part of the world, but do you think that would be a nice concept to maybe have on a production chart or something like that, to maybe give the community collections more meaning, or to add to the community collections as to create a theme park on a production chart? So starting with GodZane, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea to make Lord British's castle as a theme park, depending on whichever festivals are people having over a specific region in the world. I think that this could make the community to identify itself, and I think it could help getting the community all together. It's all about emotions. I think people who would go into the Lord British's castle would be like, yeah, I'm there. There's 200 other people over there celebrating, let's say, St. Patrick's Day, and it's cool and stuff. So that would help. How can I call it? Public relations between players and stuff.
Yeah, and that would actually be good, depending on Asia, if Asia celebrated something in that particular month of the year or something. I'm sure if they did enough research, they could find something, that they celebrate somewhere in Asia at that particular point in time of year. Maybe something in Japan, because Japan is their biggest player base in Asia to my understanding. So if they wanted to make it like an Asian type holiday in that particular month of year, I think they could actually do something more. For example, St. Patty Days over here in America and everything, they would have like the green mug and everything. You could actually get some of these semi-rares that are already in circulation or they're already in existence and give those away as community collection rewards and stuff like that for, dumping gold into it or something. But I would much rather see something like that become a gold sink rather than a resource sink. That's just my personal opinion. But go ahead, Deadeye.
Yeah, well, personally, yeah, I think that would be a very groovy idea. I'd have a lot of fun with that, but I think where maybe EA might have a problem with it would be because of our vastly multi-ethnicity of the game, and as froggy as people seem to get worried about whether things are politically correct. In other words, one group of people that doesn't celebrate Christmas getting their tail in or breeches in a knot over the fact that a bunch of us are, and get to talking about it not representing them and all that kind of silly stuff that goes on in the world. I think that might be a problem that EA may have with it. Personally, I think it'd be a great idea, but I think it would have to be done kind of across the board, and I think some of the other, shall we say, ethnic groups would have to be represented there in order to handle it. It might get to be a bit of a mess, but yeah, I think it'd be okay. Yeah, since I'm of the I'm an American and of basically a Christian background and all that kind of stuff, and do Christmas every year. Yeah, I'd have fun with a big Christmas doogaroo over there or something at Lord British's castle. But I don't know if EA would go for all that though.
Well, in a way, I think they've already demonstrated that they have the willingness to do something like that based on past history and everything, because you did have Santa's Sleigh, which was a theme shard back in the old days and everything. You did have the Abyss shard, or which is pretty much came out around Halloween and everything, and you did just recently have a Halloween shard, so quite frankly, I don't see it being that much of an issue. But yeah, Bethel Rose and everything here did make out a interesting point and everything with the regards to collections. It does have to be addressed, it does have to be fixed, it does have to be tinkered with a little bit more and redefined. But I think this is actually a step in the right direction to give the community collections more meaning and a chance to maybe get these green mugs or something that you might no longer have access to. Maybe get some Easter eggs from the community collections whenever Easter comes around, based on what you give to community collections for at Lord British's castle or something like that. That's what I'm thinking about. So. I was just kind of wondering, where you guys stood on that and everything. So, I guess if you guys had no more further comment on that, we'll go ahead and move over to our last topic of the day and everything. And I'm kind of curious as to whether or not you guys think evil decor items will ever be back. Because a lot of people said the soul stones would not be back and everything, yet we somehow managed to get soul stones back into production and circulation and everything, but the only difference is these new soul stones are blue instead of green. So I'm kind of curious as to whether or not you guys think evil decor items will ever be coming back, and I guess that's a question I'd need to ask you, Bebad.
Well, the fact that I don't work with UO where I work, I have no clue. When it comes to marketing Electronic Arts, though, they'll come back with evil decor items in a year or two, and they'll make a couple little changes to them, and that's the way marketing works at EA. They just expand on ideas they already have. I could see them coming back. I'd personally like them not to come back, but they will be back, just like every little item that's been around at one point or another. They've all come back.
Very good point. And let's see. So, Deadeye, you think they'll be coming back by any chance?
Yeah, possibly.
All right, and what are your thoughts on that, GodZane? You think they'll be reintroducing it sometime in the future as well?
I guess it's something that is needed for EA, so I guess they're gonna do it again.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of disappointed that, in the first time they kind of like misled us into believing it's going to be back. But, as we all know, they came back, but with a different hue. So, I don't know. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up to today's talk show and everything. It was kind of a bit frustrating today with all the disconnects and all the internet issues in which I've been having. So I figure I better get off here before I get disconnected again. So with that said, I want to go ahead and thank. We're going to be actually ending about 10 minutes early today. So I do want to thank all our special guests here today with us, and I want to go ahead and give them an opportunity to give any closing comments in which they might have for you guys. So with that said, go ahead, Bebad, and say goodbye to everybody out there, or anything else you might want to add.
Okay, well, I just want to say thanks for having me on the show. And just a reminder, people, pre-UR is not a bad thing. Even if you're not going to play on it, vote for us. And, yeah.
Absolutely. Vote for it, please. And we, of course, have DJ Deadeye here from Sonoma.
Yeah, well,
go ahead.
I think we talked about a lot of interesting things here and everything, and I want to thank everybody for joining in, all the people on the IRC channel and everything. I hope you enjoyed the show, and hope you'll be back for our little talk show next week.
Yep, and don't forget, we will not be having a community, what do you call them, community interview tomorrow, because Sakura is out of town all week this week, and so she's going. I think she said she was going to go to a music festival or something work related or something like that. So it's not, to go have a good time. It's something work related with regards to a music festival and all that. So with that said, we're going to turn it over to GodZane, and GodZane, go ahead and say goodbye or whatever else you want to say to all the listeners out there.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you guys for this interview. It was cool. And yeah, I have to say that UOR is what we need, so vote for us and fight for the good.
Yep, fight for the good or fight for the bad, whatever you are, vote for it. Yes, yes, yes. So with that said, I want to thank you all for tuning in for talk show number 17 with UORadio here on November 12th, Saturday, and 2005. So thank you all again, and with that said, this is DJ Viceroy tuning out,